The chamber doors opened with a sound that reminded James Crawford of an earthquake. He walked forward alone, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The sound echoed in the massive space, making him feel even more isolated. Above him, platforms rose in circular tiers toward a ceiling lost in shadow. On each platform stood representatives from alien species he had only read about in briefings. Some glowed with internal light. Others existed as clouds of gas contained in force fields. A few were so massive they occupied entire platforms, while others were so small he could barely see them. James reached the center of the judgment circle and stopped. The floor beneath his feet was made of some transparent material that showed the stars spinning far below. It created the unsettling sensation of standing on nothing. 73 different species focused their attention on him. He felt the weight of thousands of years of galactic civilization pressing down. High, Arbiter Velmuth rose from the central platform. The creature stood at least 4 meters tall, covered in silver scales that caught and reflected light from every direction. 4 arms spread wide in what might have been a gesture of authority or threat. 2 large eyes studied James with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Ambassador James Crawford of Earth. The Arbiter's voice filled every corner of the chamber, without any visible technology to amplify it. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for actions taken by the Terran Federation. You are accused of the most severe crime known to civilized space: genocide, the complete annihilation of the Krell Dominion. 7 billion sentient beings. An entire civilization removed from existence in 48 hours. James remained still. His diplomatic training had been clear. Show no weakness. Show no fear. Do not speak until given permission. Earth's future depended on what happened in the next few minutes. Velmuth gestured with one of his 4 hands. Holographic images materialized in the air above James, huge enough for everyone to see clearly. A star system appeared in the display, but something was fundamentally wrong with it. Instead of planets orbiting peacefully, James saw only debris fields and shattered worlds. The star itself burned an angry red color, swollen far beyond its natural size. Radiation readings painted the image in sickly colors. The Krell home system, Velmuth announced to the assembly. Or what remains after Earth's attack. 3 planets completely destroyed. 2 more rendered permanently uninhabitable. The star itself, altered through technology we barely understand, transformed into a red giant that consumed the inner worlds. All orbital infrastructure gone. All defensive stations destroyed. All ships eliminated. 7 billion Krell dead or displaced. A wave of sound rippled through the alien representatives. Some seemed to approve of the implied punishment awaiting humanity. Others appeared uncertain. James noticed several species watching him with something resembling curiosity rather than judgment. They wanted to hear what he would say, how he would defend actions that appeared indefensible. This council has investigated your actions thoroughly, Velmuth continued. We know what the Terran Federation did. The evidence is overwhelming. The only question that remains is whether your entire species should face extinction protocols as punishment for these crimes against galactic law. James moved slowly and deliberately, making sure everyone could see his hands. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small data storage device. He held it up for all to see. High Arbiter, honored members of the Council, I request permission to present evidence before judgment is passed. Velmuth's scales darkened to a deeper silver, almost black. You believe evidence will save your species from justice? We have witnessed the destruction. We have counted the dead. We have measured the devastation. What possible evidence could justify what Earth has done? The truth, James said simply. His voice carried clearly in the silent chamber. I will show you everything that happened. Every decision, every action, every reason. But I warn you now, once you have seen all of it, you will understand why we did not stop until nothing remained of the Krell Dominion. You will understand why mercy was not an option. The chamber fell into complete silence. Even the ambient sounds of alien breathing and movement ceased. Velmuth studied James for a long moment, then gestured with one hand. Present your evidence, human. But understand that nothing excuses the crime of genocide. Nothing. James activated the storage device. The holographic display shifted, replacing images of destruction with something else. A planet appeared, beautiful and green and blue. Settlements spread across continents in organized patterns. Orbital platforms hung in graceful formations above. Ships moved between surface and space, carrying supplies and passengers. This is New Haven, James said. Earth's first colony beyond our own star system. We established it 6 years ago. Population of 12,347 people. Scientists, engineers, teachers, farmers, families, children. He let that last word hang in the air. This recording shows New Haven as it appeared 6 months ago. A peaceful colony, building a new life on a distant world. The image changed. The same planet, but transformed. Fires burned across entire continents. The orbital platforms had vanished, replaced by expanding clouds of debris. Ships floated motionless in space, their hulls torn open. The hologram zoomed closer to show a city. Buildings had melted into pools of slag. Streets had been fused into glass. Bodies lay scattered everywhere, too many to count. This is New Haven after the Krell attacked, James continued. His voice remained steady, controlled, despite the horror displayed above him. No warning was given. No demands were made. No communication was attempted. Krell warships simply appeared in orbit and began firing. They targeted population centers first, then transportation hubs, then the evacuation ships attempting to flee. They ensured that almost no one could escape. He advanced the display to show video footage. The camera shook as whoever held it ran. People screamed. Children cried. Explosions tore through buildings in waves of fire. A woman appeared in the frame, holding a baby, looking up at the sky as destruction rained down. The video ended abruptly and static. Several alien representatives made sounds of distress. Others shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. James noticed Velmuth's scales had lightened slightly from black to silver again. The arbiter's expression was harder to read now. 12,347 people, James repeated. That was the population of New Haven. Do you know how many survived? He paused, but no one answered. 8. 8 people reached emergency escape pods before the Krell destroyed everything else. 8 survivors from more than 12,000 colonists. James raised his eyes to meet the gaze of as many council members as possible. When the Krell attacked New Haven, they did not know 3 critical facts about humanity. First, they did not know we had developed quantum entanglement communication technology. Their jamming equipment blocked conventional signals. But quantum-linked communications cannot be jammed by any known method. New Haven's final transmission reached Earth instantaneously. We saw everything. We heard everything. We recorded every moment of our people dying. The display changed again, showing thousands of photographs. Faces smiled from family pictures. Children played in parks. Scientists worked in laboratories. Engineers built new structures. Workers planted crops. Every image showed names, ages, occupations. The display cycled through them at a measured pace, ensuring everyone in the chamber saw the faces of the dead. The second thing the Krell did not know about humanity, James said. We remember. Every face. Every name. Every life. These people are not statistics to us. Each one matters. Each one is mourned. Each one demands justice. The photographs faded, replaced by dense technical schematics and research documents marked with security classifications. Velmuth leaned forward from his platform, studying the display with evident interest. The third thing the Krell did not know, James said, and now his voice carried an edge sharp enough to cut. They did not know about Project Lazarus. The chamber exploded into chaos. Dozens of species began speaking simultaneously in their native languages, creating a cacophony of sound. Velmuth raised all 4 arms high, demanding silence. Project Lazarus, the High Arbiter said slowly. That is a human myth. A legend. Stories claim it is some form of resurrection technology that violates fundamental laws of physics. James allowed himself a small, cold smile. Project Lazarus is not what you think, High Arbiter. But before I explain its true purpose, you need to see what the Krell did after New Haven, because one colony was not enough for them. The holographic display shifted to show 3 more planets. Each bore the unmistakable signs of Krell attacks. Cities reduced to ruins, populations massacred, infrastructure obliterated. Over the next 2 months, James said quietly, the Krell Dominion systematically attacked 4 human colonies in total. More than 50,000 people killed. Men, women, elderly, children. The Krell did not attack for resources. They did not attack for territory. They did this as a test, to measure how humanity would respond to sustained pressure. Their military philosophy called it demonstration strikes. They wanted to establish dominance over the newest species in council space. They wanted to prove humans were weak, that we would not fight back effectively. He turned to face Velmuth directly. They were incorrect in that assessment? Catastrophically incorrect. The holographic display remained frozen on images of destroyed human colonies. James let the silence stretch, allowing the council members to absorb what they were seeing. Finally, he continued. Earth received New Haven's final transmission 8 minutes after the attack began. By the time our fastest ships could have reached the colony, everyone was already dead. We listened to them die. We watched through their cameras. We recorded their last messages to families back home. And we could do nothing to save them. James advanced the display to show Earth itself. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, blue oceans and white clouds. But the image zoomed in to show massive industrial complexes, military installations, research facilities all operating at maximum capacity. The Krell made an assumption about Earth, James said. They assumed we would respond the way most species respond to sudden attacks, panic, hasty military mobilization, demands for immediate retaliation, emotional decision-making. That is what they expected because that is what they had seen from other species they attacked in the past. He gestured at the display. Instead, Earth went silent. We sent no threats. We issued no warnings. We made no military moves they could detect. For 2 months, while the Krell attacked 3 more colonies, Earth appeared to do nothing at all. The Krell interpreted this as weakness, as fear. They believed they had successfully intimidated humanity into submission. A new figure appeared in the hologram. A woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She wore a simple uniform with minimal decoration. The nameplate read Director Maya Torres. This is Director Torres, James explained. She leads Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division. While the Krell were celebrating their victories and planning their final attack on Earth itself, Director Torres was doing something the Krell never anticipated. The display showed a massive operations center. Thousands of people worked at stations, analyzing data, coordinating activities. Screens covered every wall, displaying information in multiple languages. Director Torres spent 2 months studying the Krell, James said. Not just their military capabilities, which any species would analyze. She studied everything. Their biology, their psychology, their culture, their history, their technology, their communication protocols, their supply chains, their political structure. Every aspect of Krell civilization, analyzed in exhaustive detail. The display shifted to show star charts marked with Krell territory. Hundreds of locations were highlighted in different colors. We mapped every military installation they operated, every supply depot, every communication relay, every defensive position. We identified the locations of their leadership. We tracked their fleet movements in real time. We infiltrated their computer networks and read their military communications as they were sent. Within 6 weeks, Earth knew more about the Krell Dominion than the Krell knew about themselves. Ambassador Thrix of the Harmonious Collective, A being composed of crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light spoke from their platform. You were preparing an attack? This is understandable, even if the scale of your response was not proportional. James shook his head. We were not preparing an attack, Ambassador Thrix. An attack is a tactical action with limited objectives. What we prepared was comprehensive annihilation. There is a significant difference. The display changed again, showing technical schematics for weapons and systems. Even to James, who had seen these designs dozens of times, they looked frighteningly advanced. While we studied the Krell, our scientists and engineers were working, James explained. Not on general military upgrades. On weapons specifically designed to exploit Krell vulnerabilities. Biological weak points identified through analysis of their physiology. Technological weaknesses discovered in their shield systems and armor. Psychological triggers found in their cultural patterns. Every weapon, every strategy, every tactic optimized specifically to fight Krell forces. He gestured at the schematics. These weapons did not exist before the Krell attacked New Haven. We designed and built them in 8 weeks. Specifically to kill Krell as efficiently as possible? Velmoth's scales darkened again. You weaponized knowledge. You transformed scientific understanding into tools of destruction. Yes, James agreed without hesitation. The Krell gave us 2 months to study them before they made their final move. We used that time efficiently. The holographic display shifted dramatically, showing a massive fleet of ships approaching Earth. The computer counted 57 Krell warships, each one massive and heavily armed. They moved in precise formation, clearly following a coordinated battle plan. 93 days after the first attack on New Haven, James said the Krell fleet arrived at Earth not to conquer, not to occupy, to exterminate. We have complete recordings of their military council meetings. They voted unanimously. Humanity had proven too dangerous, too unpredictable, too aggressive to exist alongside other civilized species. We were to be completely eliminated. The chamber remained silent. Every council member watched the Krell fleet approach Earth, the ship's powered weapons. Targeting systems locked onto the planet. Everything indicated an imminent attack. The Krell sent one message before they opened fire, James continued. I will play it for you now. A Krell voice filled the chamber, harsh and guttural even through translation. Humans of Earth, you have been judged unworthy of existence in civilized space. Your species shows dangerous tendencies toward violence and irrationality. For the safety of the galactic community, you will be eliminated. This is not negotiable. This is not punishment. This is pest control. The message ended. James let the words hang in the air for a moment before speaking again. Pest control, he repeated softly. They compared humanity to vermin. To insects to be exterminated for the convenience of others. 57 warships against one planet. They expected easy victory. They expected Earth to surrender or die quickly. They expected us to beg for mercy. The hologram showed the moment the Krell fleet began its attack. Energy weapons charged. Missiles launched. The first wave of destruction headed toward Earth, and then something happened that made several council members cry out in surprise. The Krell ships simply stopped working. All 57 vessels went dark simultaneously. Power systems failed. Weapons deactivated. Life support cut out. The massive warships became nothing more than metal coffins drifting through space. Project Lazarus, James said quietly. Not resurrection technology. Quantum cascade disruptors. Humanity discovered that Krell reactor technology operates on a very specific harmonic frequency. A frequency that can be disrupted using quantum-entangled particles at a distance. We turned their own power sources into bombs. The hologram showed the interior of Krell ships. Crew members panicked as their vessels died around them. Emergency systems failed to activate. Backup power never came online. And then the reactors began to overload. 37 Krell warships exploded within 6 minutes. The detonations lit up Earth's orbital space like a fireworks display. The remaining 20 ships tried to retreat, tried to escape, tried anything to avoid the fate of their companion vessels. None succeeded. From beyond lunar orbit, Earth's fleet emerged. Not the small defensive force the Krell expected, but a massive armada that had been hidden in the outer system. The ships moved with deadly precision, each one targeting a disabled Krell vessel. The Krell fleet contained 93,000 military personnel, James said. We killed all of them. Every single one. They came to exterminate 8 billion humans. We showed restraint by limiting ourselves to combatants. But we showed them no mercy. The hologram displayed the aftermath. Debris from Krell ships scattered across millions of kilometers. Not a single Krell escape pod survived. Not a single lifeboat made it to safety. Earth's forces had been thorough. The battle lasted 4 hours, James continued. The cleanup took 3 days. By the end, nothing remained of the Krell invasion force except wreckage and bodies. He paused, then brought up a new image. Director Maya Torres appeared again, this time recording a message. This was broadcast on every Krell communication frequency across their empire, James explained. We made sure every Krell citizen, every government official, every military commander heard this message. We bypassed their censorship. We overrode their control systems. We ensured no one could avoid hearing Earth's response. Director Torres spoke from the recording. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact, as if discussing routine business rather than declaring war. Citizens of the Krell Dominion, this is Director Maya Torres of Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division. Your military fleet arrived at Earth today with the intention of exterminating humanity. That fleet has been destroyed with complete losses. 93,000 of your military personnel are dead. Earth hereby declares total war upon the Krell Dominion. Not for territory, not for surrender, for cessation. You attacked our civilians. You murdered our children. You came to our homeworld to exterminate our species. You will learn what happens when humans stop being civilized. The recording ended. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Within hours, the Krell Empire began mobilizing their full military strength, James said. 300 warships total, spread across 3 star systems. They activated every defense system. They powered up planetary shields. They called in every soldier, every pilot, every crew member. They prepared for the war they had started. The hologram showed Krell military installations across multiple worlds, all going to maximum alert status. They had 300 ships, James continued. We had 6 fleets. They assumed numerical advantage would save them. They assumed defensive positions would hold us off. They assumed conventional warfare. He smiled coldly. They assumed incorrectly on all counts. The display shifted to show Earth's fleets departing Sol System. 6 separate armadas, each one larger than the Council had known humanity possessed. They moved toward Krell space with obvious hostile intent. But the fleets were not the weapon, James said softly. They were the distraction. A new image appeared. A small human research vessel, unremarkable and unassuming, entering Krell space from a completely different direction. The timestamp showed it arrived 12 hours before the main fleets. Velmuth leaned forward, all 4 hands gripping the edge of his platform. What did you do? James met the High Arbiter's eyes. The Krell asked us what we were capable of. We showed them. You wanted to know how humanity destroyed an entire civilization in 48 hours. The answer begins with that single research vessel and what it carried. The hologram focused on the small research vessel as it drifted through Krell space. The ship appeared insignificant compared to the massive military fleets moving through the same region. Council members leaned forward, trying to understand what made this vessel important. The Krell military was watching our main fleets, James explained. 6 armadas approaching their territory, impossible to miss. Every sensor, every scanner, every spy satellite focused on tracking those ships. They were calculating firing solutions, coordinating defensive positions, preparing for the largest battle in their history. The research vessel continued its journey, completely ignored by Krell forces. It approached the Krell homeworld from an unexpected angle. using the star's radiation to mask its presence. While they watched the obvious threat, James continued, "Our research vessel reached the Krell homeworld undetected. It carried no weapons, no missiles, no energy cannons, just a single cargo container." Ambassador Thrix's crystalline form flickered with agitation. What was in the container? James gestured at the display. 2 months of intensive research into Krell biology, atmospheric requirements, and technological dependencies, compressed into one delivery system. The hologram showed the research vessel releasing a small canister. The object descended into the Krell homeworld's upper atmosphere. Barely larger than a standard cargo pod. Several council members stood abruptly. Others made sounds of alarm in their native languages. Velmuth's scales turned almost white. "You deployed biological weapons," the High Arbiter said, his voice barely above a whisper, "against a civilian population. That violates the most fundamental laws of galactic civilization. The biological warfare protocols were established to prevent exactly this kind of atrocity." "We deployed an atmospheric modification system," James corrected, "not a biological weapon. The distinction is important." He advanced the hologram to show detailed chemical analysis. The canister dispersed its contents across the Krell homeworld's upper atmosphere. Molecular diagrams filled the display, showing complex chemical interactions. "The Krell atmosphere contains specific trace elements," James explained. "Nothing unusual, but the proportions are unique to their world. We altered the atmospheric composition by exactly 0.03%. An insignificant change, completely harmless to Krell biology. They could breathe perfectly well with no health effects whatsoever." Thrix's form pulsed with confusion. "Then what was the purpose?" "Krell technology," James said simply. "Over millennia, the Krell built their entire civilization using resources native to their homeworld. One element in particular, a mineral compound found only on their planet, became fundamental to their technology. They incorporated it into everything. Power generation systems, computer processors, communication networks, life support systems, transportation, everything." The hologram showed molecular diagrams of Krell technology components, highlighting the native compound James mentioned. "This compound has unique properties that made it extremely useful for Krell engineering," James continued. "But it has one significant weakness. In the presence of certain atmospheric conditions, it becomes inert. Not dangerous, not explosive, just completely non-functional." Understanding rippled through the council chamber. Velmuth sat back heavily on his platform. "You did not attack their people," the Arbiter said slowly. "You attacked their technology. We turned their entire planet into a dead zone for their own systems," James confirmed. "The atmospheric modification took 6 hours to reach equilibrium. After that, every piece of technology on the Krell homeworld that relied on their native compounds simply stopped working." The hologram showed the cascade of failures spreading across the Krell homeworld. Power grids going dark, communication towers falling silent, transportation systems grinding to a halt, defense shields flickering and dying, computer networks crashing. "Within 18 hours," James said, "the Krell went from a spacefaring civilization to pre-industrial technology level. Their planetary shields failed first, then their power generation, then everything else. They could not coordinate their military. They could not communicate between cities. They could not even maintain basic infrastructure." The display showed Krell cities plunging into darkness, citizens emerging from buildings, confused and frightened. Government officials trying desperately to understand what was happening, but the people survived, a council member noted. "You said the atmospheric change was harmless to their biology." "Most of them survived the initial transition," James agreed. "Though thousands died when critical systems failed, medical equipment, environmental controls, emergency services. But yes, the majority of the Krell population survived. We made sure of that. We wanted witnesses." The hologram shifted to show Earth's 6 fleets arriving at the edge of Krell territory. The Krell military tried to respond, but without coordination or communication, their defense collapsed into chaos. The Krell had 300 warships, James said. Without centralized command, each ship acted independently. They had no intelligence about our forces, no communication with their government, no coordination with other vessels. We destroyed them one by one over the next 36 hours. The display showed systematic elimination of Krell military assets. Space stations destroyed. Orbital platforms neutralized. Ships hunted down and eliminated. The battles were not dramatic or prolonged. They were efficient and final. 96,000 Krell military personnel died in the space battles, James stated. We offered no quarter. We accepted no surrender. They came to exterminate humanity. We returned the favor. Velmuth raised one hand. But you said 7 billion Krell died. The military losses account for less than 1% of that number. Where are the rest? James brought up new images. The Krell homeworld and its sister planets. The hologram showed time-lapse footage of the following 2 weeks. After neutralizing their military, we sent aid to the Krell homeworld, James explained. Medical supplies, food, water purification systems, equipment compatible with their new technological limitations. Enough to prevent mass starvation and environmental collapse. We restored basic power to hospitals and critical infrastructure. You helped them? Thrick sounded confused. We kept them alive, James corrected. We provided exactly enough assistance to ensure they would survive long enough to witness what came next. We wanted them to understand, to really comprehend, what they had brought upon themselves. The hologram showed human personnel on the Krell homeworld, distributing supplies, helping restore basic services. But their faces showed no compassion. They worked with cold efficiency, like technicians performing a necessary task. While humanitarian teams helped Krell civilians survive, our military forces cataloged everything we had captured, Jane said. Krell research facilities, military academies, government archives, strategic planning centers. We studied their history in detail. The display filled with Krell military records, battle plans, conquest strategies, target assessments. Lists of species marked for demonstration strikes and eventual subjugation. We discovered something interesting, James continued. Humanity was not the Krell's first victim. They had been doing this for centuries. Small attacks on species at their borders. Intimidation campaigns? Strategic bullying. The Council never knew because the victims were either absorbed into the Krell dominion or too frightened to report the attacks. He brought up a list of 17 different species. Each entry included dates, locations, casualty numbers. Some entries ended with notations like absorbed, conquered, or extinct. 17 different species over 300 years, James said. 5 of them no longer exist as independent civilizations. The others live under Krell domination, too broken to resist. The Krell were not just bullies. They were systematic predators, and the Council never stopped them because you never knew. Velmoth's scales had darkened to almost black again. This information does not justify genocide. No, James agreed. But it informed our decision about what to do next. We gave the Krell government a choice. Full disarmament. Council supervision. Complete demilitarization. They had 72 hours to respond. The hologram showed the Krell Government Council meeting in a building lit by primitive torches since their power systems no longer functioned. The translation showed their debate clearly. The Krell response, when it came, was defiant. They rejected all terms. They promised revenge. They swore that once they rebuilt, humanity would pay for this humiliation 1,000 times over. They chose poorly, James said quietly. So we showed them what happens when humans decide to end a threat permanently. The display shifted to show Earth's fleets repositioning. Not around Krell planets. Around the Krell star itself, Several council members made sounds of horror. Others stood from their platforms, shouting objections. Velmuth raised all four arms, calling for silence. "You attacked their sun," the High Arbiter said. "You committed stellar modification without council approval. That alone carries severe penalties. We committed stellar modification against a species that declared their intention to exterminate humanity," James corrected. "A species that had attacked 17 others before us. A species that, even after losing everything, still promised revenge. We decided the galaxy would be safer if the Krell no longer posed a threat to anyone." The hologram showed detailed astronomical data. The Krell star was a K-class main sequence star, stable and long-lived. Perfect for supporting civilization for billions of years. Was, James emphasized. Before we modified it. The display showed Earth's vessels deploying equipment around the star. Massive gravitational manipulation devices. Material injection systems. Precision instruments that would make theoretical astrophysicists weep with envy. We accelerated the star's aging process by approximately 50 million years, James explained, using gravitational lances to inject helium and heavier elements directly into the fusion core. Over 12 hours, we transformed a stable main sequence star into an expanding red giant. The hologram showed the process in time-lapse. The star's color shifting from yellow to orange to deep red. The outer layers expanding. The photosphere growing larger, reaching toward the inner planets. "Before we initiated the process," James said, "we evacuated the Krell homeworld. Every civilian, every non-combatant. We gave them 48 hours to evacuate to their outer colonies. 3.2 billion Krell accepted our evacuation offer. They boarded our transports and were relocated safely." "And the others?" Thrix asked quietly. James's expression remained cold. 4 billion Krell refused evacuation. Military personnel who would not surrender. Government officials who believed we were bluffing. Civilians who thought their shields would protect them. They all had the same 48 hours. They all made their choice. The hologram showed the Krell star expanding. The innermost planet was consumed in hours. The second planet's atmosphere was stripped away. And then the star reached the homeworld. The planetary shields held for exactly 6 hours. Then they failed. 4 billion Krell remained on their homeworld when their sun consumed it, James said. They burned. Every single one. Along with their history, their culture, their monuments, their cities. Everything the Krell had built over millennia turned to ash and stellar plasma. The chamber remained silent. Even the most hardened council members looked shaken by what they were witnessing. The star stabilized in its new red giant phase after 3 weeks, James continued. Where the Krell homeworld once orbited, there is now only expanding stellar material. Nothing remains. Nothing survived. He brought up current star charts. The Krell home system, officially designated with a new name. We registered the system with Galactic Cartography under a new designation, James said. Sanctuary 12,347, named after the 12,347 people who died at New Haven, the colony where this all began. We wanted every species in the galaxy to see that star and remember what happens when you target humanity's children. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Dozens of species spoke simultaneously, some in anger, others in horror, a few in what sounded like approval. Velmuth struggled to restore order, raising all 4 arms and generating a harmonic tone that silenced the chamber. "Ambassador Crawford." The High Arbiter's voice carried an edge of barely controlled fury. "You stand here and describe the murder of 4 billion sentient beings as if it were a reasonable action. You destroyed an entire world. You modified a star? You eliminated a civilization. How can you possibly justify this?" James remained calm in the center of the judgment circle. "I justify it the same way the Krell justified attacking New Haven, the same way they justified killing 50,000 human civilians. They came to our homeworld with the explicit intention of exterminating our entire species. We simply ensured they could never attempt that again. By committing genocide yourself, Thrix said, their crystalline form pulsing with agitated light. You became what you fought against. No, James replied firmly. We gave them a choice. 48 hours to evacuate. We provided transportation. We guaranteed safety. 3 billion Krell accepted our offer and survived. The 4 billion who died made the conscious decision to remain. They chose to bet that we would not follow through. They bet wrong? Velmuth leaned forward. What of the 3 billion you evacuated? Where are they now? James activated the hologram again, showing multiple planetary settlements. Krell architecture was visible, but the structures looked different, simpler, smaller, less advanced than what had appeared in earlier images. The Krell survivors are settled in their outer colonies, James explained. Systems beyond the reach of their modified sun. We provided resources to help them rebuild, medical technology, agricultural equipment, power generation systems that function despite the loss of their native compounds. Enough to maintain a reasonable standard of living. The display showed Krell civilians in their new settlements. Children attended schools. Adults worked in fields and factories. The scenes looked peaceful, but something was fundamentally different about the civilization on display. They have been stripped of all military capability, James continued. No warships. No weapons manufacturing. No offensive technology of any kind. They have defensive systems sufficient to protect against pirates, but nothing capable of threatening another species. A council observation team monitors them continuously to ensure compliance. You turn them into a subject people, a council member observed. Controlled and supervised. We turn them into a civilization that cannot harm others, James corrected. They are free to live, to grow, to develop their society. They simply cannot do so in a way that threatens anyone else. The 17 species the Krell victimized over 3 centuries should appreciate that change. Velmuth studied James for a long moment. You said 3 billion survived out of 7 billion total Krell population. That accounts for less than half. Where are the others? You mentioned 4 billion died on the homeworld, but that exceeds half the population. James nodded. The Krell military losses account for the discrepancy. 93,000 in the initial fleet that attacked Earth, 96,000 in the defensive battles. Approximately 300,000 more in garrisons, space stations, and military installations across their empire. We eliminated every military target we could identify. No prisoners. No exceptions. Nearly 500,000 military personnel, Thrix calculated. Plus 4 billion civilians who refused evacuation. That is genocide by any definition. That is war, James replied coldly. The Krell declared their intention to exterminate humanity. They attacked our colonies. They came to our homeworld to finish the job. Everything that followed stems from their decision. They chose this path. We simply walked it to its conclusion. The hologram shifted to show records and documents. Krell military files translated into multiple languages for the Council's benefit. After we secured Krell territory, we opened their military archives to Council inspection, James said. Everything is available for your review. Battle plans for attacks on 6 additional species. Resource extraction schemes that would have devastated multiple worlds. Slave labor programs. Cultural elimination protocols. The Krell were not innocent victims. They were predators who finally encountered prey that fought back. A new voice spoke from one of the upper platforms. Ambassador Wren of the Sovereign Accord, a species James had not heard from before. The being appeared vaguely reptilian, covered in green scales. With multiple eyes, the Council appreciates Earth's transparency, Wren said. But transparency does not excuse actions. You have admitted to stellar modification, mass casualties, and elimination of a species' ability to defend itself. These are serious violations of Council law. James turned to face Wren directly. Then the Council should also investigate the Krell's violations. Unprovoked attacks on civilian populations. Attempted genocide of a Council member species. 3 centuries of undocumented aggression against weaker civilizations. If Earth is to be judged, judge the Krell equally. The Krell no longer exist as a political entity, Velmuth pointed out. They cannot be judged. Exactly, James said. They cannot be judged because we eliminated their ability to threaten others. We did what the Council failed to do for 300 years. We stopped them. The chamber fell silent. James could see the Council members processing this argument. Some appeared sympathetic. Others remained hostile. Most looked uncertain. "There's another matter," Thrix said eventually. "You mentioned Project Lazarus and the technology you developed to defeat the Krell quantum cascade disruptors. Atmospheric modification systems. Stellar manipulation equipment. These are advanced technologies that could threaten any species. What is Earth's intention with these weapons?" James had expected this question. The quantum disruptors are specifically tuned to Krell reactor frequencies. They would not affect other species' technology. We have no intention of deploying them against anyone else. But you could develop similar weapons targeting other reactor types, Wren observed. You could build atmospheric modification systems for any species' environmental requirements. You could modify any star. The potential threat is obvious. The potential exists, James admitted. Just as the potential for any species to develop weapons exists. Earth has no intention of attacking Council members or peaceful civilizations. But we also have no intention of being caught unprepared again. The Krell attacked us because they believed we were weak. We will not allow that mistake to be repeated by others. Velmuth stood fully, his imposing height making him even more intimidating. "You are telling this council that Earth will maintain military capability sufficient to destroy entire civilizations, and we are simply supposed to trust that you will use this power responsibly?" "No," James replied. "You are supposed to remember what happened to the species that forced us to develop that capability. The Krell could have left humanity alone. They could have respected our colonies. They could have pursued peace. Instead, they chose violence. They chose to target civilians. They chose to come to Earth with extermination fleets. Everything that followed was their choice." He gestured at the hologram, which still showed the Krell remnant colonies. 3 billion Krell are alive today because we chose to spare them. We could have eliminated them all. We had the capability. We had the justification. We chose mercy for those who accepted it. The 4 billion who died made their own choice. "This is not mercy," Thrix said quietly. "This is terror. You have shown the galaxy what Earth is capable of when angered. You have demonstrated power that rivals or exceeds most Council militaries. You have proven that humanity will respond to aggression with overwhelming force. This is a threat, whether you intend it as such or not." James nodded slowly. "Then let it be a threat. Let every species in Council space understand clearly what happens when they attack human civilians, when they target our children, when they come to our worlds with extermination fleets." The Krell learned this lesson. Their star burns in the sky as a reminder. Any species that needs further education is welcome to provide us with another opportunity to teach. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Velmuth spoke. "The Council must deliberate on this matter. Ambassador Crawford, you will wait for our judgment. What you have described could be classified as justifiable defense or as genocidal war crimes. The distinction will determine Earth's status in the galactic community." James shook his head. "With respect, High Arbiter, Earth is not waiting for the Council's judgment. We came here as a courtesy to explain our actions. We provided evidence and transparency. But we do not require the Council's permission to defend ourselves, and we will not apologize for ensuring that human children can sleep safely at night." Velmuth's scales darkened dangerously. "You dare refuse Council authority?" "I dare to state the truth," James replied calmly. "Humanity joined this Council 5 years ago as a peaceful species seeking cooperation and trade. The Krell taught us that the galaxy is more dangerous than we believed. They taught us that some species view newcomers as prey. They taught us that survival requires strength. We learned those lessons well. He walked slowly around the judgment circle, addressing the entire council. Earth will cooperate with council investigations. We will answer questions honestly. We will provide any evidence requested. But we will not submit to judgment for defending our own people. We will not accept punishment for stopping a species that attacked us repeatedly and declared their intention to exterminate us. If the Council cannot understand the difference between aggression and self-defense, then perhaps the Council needs to reconsider its values. You speak boldly for someone standing accused of genocide, Wren observed. I speak honestly for someone whose species faced extinction, James countered. The Krell attacked 4 colonies. They killed 50,000 people. They brought 57 warships to Earth with orders to eliminate all human life. If we had failed to stop them, I would not be standing here, because humanity would no longer exist. The only reason we can have this conversation is because Earth proved capable of defending itself. Remember that before you judge us too harshly. Velmuth sat back down heavily. The Council will deliberate. You may return to the diplomatic quarters while we discuss this matter. James nodded. I will wait. But before I go, the Council should understand one final point. He activated the hologram one last time, showing technical data and fleet readiness reports. Everything you have seen today. Every weapon, every strategy, every capability we demonstrated against the Krell, we developed in 2 months after they attacked New Haven. 2 months of focused effort while grieving for our dead. Now Earth has had 6 additional months of peace to continue development, to improve systems, to expand capabilities, to prepare for potential future threats. He let that information sink in before continuing. Imagine what humanity will be capable of in 5 years, in 10 years, in a century. We are not threatening anyone. We are simply stating a fact. The Krell awakened something in humanity that cannot be put back to sleep. We learned that the galaxy is dangerous. We learned that peaceful species can be destroyed by aggressive ones. We learned that survival requires strength. Those are lessons we will never forget. James walked toward the chamber exit, then paused and turned back one final time. The last species to anger humanity, we named a star after their graveyard. Any species that wishes to test us again should first ask themselves if they want their sun to become the next memorial. The diplomatic quarters assigned to James were luxurious by any standard, but he barely noticed the accommodations. He stood at the massive window overlooking the council complex, watching ships from 100 different species come and go. Somewhere in this vast station, the council was deciding Earth's fate. The wait stretched into hours. A soft tone indicated someone at the door. James turned as Director Maya Torres entered. She looked tired but satisfied. Her gray hair was slightly disheveled and she carried a datapad under one arm. The preliminary votes are in, Maya said without preamble. 31 species support sanctions against Earth, 27 are undecided. 15 explicitly support our actions. The Arbiter has not voted yet, and neither have the senior council members. James nodded. Better than expected. I thought more would immediately condemn us. Many species are frightened, Maya explained, sitting in one of the provided chairs. Not of punishment or sanctions? They are frightened of us. They watched you describe the systematic elimination of an entire civilization in 48 hours. They saw the technology we developed in 2 months. They understand the implications. Fear was the goal, James said quietly. The Krell attacked us because they believed we were weak. Others might make the same mistake. Better they fear what we are capable of than test it themselves. Maya pulled up information on her datapad. The Sovereign Accord is pushing hard for military restrictions on Earth. They want us limited to defensive forces only, with Council observers monitoring our shipyards. Several species support that position? We will not accept those terms, James stated firmly. Earth defended itself successfully. We will not surrender that capability because others are uncomfortable with our strength. I know, Maya agreed. But we should prepare for significant diplomatic pressure. The Council is not used to member species acting unilaterally. They prefer consensus, compromise, and collective decision-making. We threw all of that aside when we destroyed the Krell. James turned back to the window. The Council failed to protect us. They did not even know the Krell were attacking species at their borders. If we had relied on Council protection, humanity would no longer exist. We made the right decision. History will be the judge of that, Maya said softly. But in the immediate term, we need to consider our position carefully. If too many species unite against us, we could face economic isolation or military coalition. They would not dare, James replied. We just demonstrated what happens to species that threaten Earth. The Council members may be uncomfortable, but they are not suicidal. The door tone sounded again. This time, Ambassador Thrix entered, their crystalline form pulsing with measured light. The being's presence filled the room with a soft harmonic resonance. Ambassador Crawford, Director Torres, Thrix said formally. The Council has reached a preliminary consensus. The Arbiter requests your presence to hear the decision. That was faster than expected, Maya observed, standing up. Your presentation was very thorough, Thrix replied. And very disturbing. The Council has much to discuss regarding the implications of Earth's actions. But the immediate question of sanctions has been resolved. James and Maya followed Thrix back through the complex toward the Council chamber. The corridors were filled with beings from dozens of species, all watching the humans pass. Some looked curious. Others appeared hostile. Many simply looked frightened. The Council chamber doors opened again. James walked to the judgment circle while Maya took a position in the observers section. Every platform was occupied now. Every Council member present. The assembled representatives of galactic civilization focused their collective attention on one human standing alone. High Arbiter Velmuth stood, his silver scales neutral in color. Ambassador Crawford, the Council has deliberated on Earth's actions regarding the Krell Dominion. We have reviewed the evidence presented. We have examined the timeline of events. We have considered the legal and moral implications of all parties' decisions. The chamber remained completely silent. James stood calmly, showing no visible tension despite knowing that Earth's future was being decided in the next few moments. The Council finds, Velmuth continued, that the Krell Dominion initiated hostilities against the Terran Federation through unprovoked attacks on civilian populations. These attacks violated multiple Council protocols regarding warfare and treatment of non-combatants. The Krell's stated intention to exterminate humanity constitutes an attempted genocide under Council law. A murmur ran through the assembled species. James noticed several representatives seemed surprised by this characterization. Furthermore, the Arbiter continued, the Council acknowledges that Earth acted in self-defense against a legitimate existential threat. The Terran Federation's response, while extreme, was directed primarily at military targets and those civilians who refused evacuation offers. The Council cannot condemn a species for defending itself against attempted extermination. James felt something unclench in his chest. This was going better than he had dared hope. However, Velmuth's tone hardened. The Council is deeply disturbed by the methods employed and the technologies demonstrated. Stellar modification, atmospheric alteration, and weapons of mass disruption represent capabilities that could threaten any species in Council space. The ease with which Earth developed and deployed these systems suggests a concerning level of militarization. The silver scales darkened slightly. Therefore, the Council has decided upon the following terms. Earth will not face sanctions, expulsion, or military action. Your status as a Council member remains unchanged. However, Earth must agree to participate in a mutual defense and technology-sharing compact with Council security forces. James kept his expression neutral. What does this compact entail? Earth will provide technical specifications for the quantum cascade disruptors and other unique technologies to the Council's military research division, Velmuth explained. In exchange, the Council will recognize Earth's right to maintain whatever military forces you deem necessary for your security. Additionally, Earth will be granted a seat on the Council's Security Committee with full voting rights on military matters. Ambassador Wren stood from his platform. This gives Earth significant authority in Council military decisions. Some members object to granting such power to a species that has proven so willing to use extreme force. And some members, another voice called out, recognize that Earth proved capable of defeating a threat the Council failed to even detect. Perhaps their perspective on security matters would be valuable. Velmuth raised all four arms, calling for quiet. The proposal has been voted upon and approved by the required majority. Earth may accept these terms or reject them. If you reject them, economic and diplomatic sanctions will be imposed instead. James considered carefully. Sharing the disruptor technology was risky, but the Council would eventually develop similar systems on their own. Gaining a Security Committee seat was a significant victory. It meant Earth would have direct influence over Council military policy going forward. Earth accepts these terms, James said formally. We will provide the requested technical specifications within 30 days. We appreciate the Council's recognition of our right to self-defense. Velmuth nodded. Then this matter is resolved. Earth will face no punishment for actions taken against the Krell Dominion. The record will show that humanity acted in legitimate self-defense against a species that initiated hostilities and threatened genocide. The Arbiter paused, then added more quietly, but let the record also show that the Council hopes never to witness such destruction again. What happened to the Krell serves as a warning to all species. Aggression against civilian populations will not be tolerated, and those who attempt it may face consequences beyond what Council law prescribes. James bowed slightly. Humanity has no desire to repeat what happened with the Krell. We seek peaceful cooperation with all Council species. But we will never again allow ourselves to be vulnerable to attack. We will never again watch our children die while hoping others will protect us. Several Council members shifted uncomfortably. Thrix's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been approval or concern. It was difficult to tell. One final matter, Velmuth said. The Krell survivors in their remnant colonies have petitioned for Council protectorate status. They seek supervision and support while rebuilding their civilization. Does Earth object to this petition? James shook his head. Earth has no objection. We provided evacuation and resettlement assistance to 3 billion Krell civilians. We want them to survive and rebuild peacefully. Council oversight will ensure they do not reconstitute military forces capable of threatening others. We support their petition. Then it is approved, Velmuth declared. The Krell remnant will become a Council protectorate, subject to demilitarization requirements and regular inspections. They will receive economic and technical assistance to rebuild their society along peaceful lines. The Arbiter sat down, signaling the end of the formal proceedings. Ambassador Crawford, the Council thanks you for your cooperation and transparency during this investigation. You may return to Earth with Jan?